Alrighty, so let's get working on this app. I got myself a new project open here. It's always exciting to start with a brand new project. And I'm going to select a single view app, and we're going to say next. And I'm going to call this Good Eatins. And I'm just going to go ahead and say next and plop this on the desktop. I'm going to say create. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is get our project set up. We're going to first work on the model side of things. So what I mean by that is this app, if you remember from the introduction, it has a lot of data. It has things like the images and the food categories, and then each food category has its own recipe. And so we're going to need a couple of classes to help us keep track of our data. So I'm going to go ahead and, following our MVC pattern, I'm going to go ahead and create a new group, and we're going to call this here model. And I'll go ahead and create the other two as well. New group, and we'll call this view. And finally, new group, and call this controller. Okay, and then I need to rearrange these. Let's see if we can get this right. All right, so we got model, and then model view controller. There we go. All right, so here under model, I'm going to right click, and we're going to say new file, and this is just going to be a Swift file. I'm going to say next, and this is going to be our food category. Okay, I'm going to say create. All right, so we're going to create a structure here, a struct, that is going to hold the information that correlates to what our food category needs to hold, okay? So I'm going to say struct food category. And if you recall, structs and classes, you can kind of think of them like molds or blueprints. And what we're going to be able to do is take all of that data that we're going to import here in a little bit, and we can actually create instances of a food category structure and then use those as objects in our code. Okay, so our food category, it's pretty simple. We only have two properties here. We have a title and an image name. So I'm going to say let title be of type string, and let image name be of type string. Okay, and that's all we need to do, because remember, structs actually come with their own built-in initializers. So that's pretty nice. All right, so we have our food category. Now let's go ahead and create ourselves a new file. And again, this is going to be a Swift file. I'm going to say next. And this is going to be our recipe model. So I'm just going to say recipe and create. And we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to create a struct, and we're going to name it recipe. And it is going to have three fields. We're going to have a title, which is going to be a string. We have some instructions, which is going to be a string, and we have an image name, which is also going to be a string. I'm going to save that. And now that we have these two data classes here, our food category, which will keep track of the title and image name of the food categories, and a recipe struct, which will keep track of the title, instructions, and image name, we're now ready to import our data set. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file here. I'm going to say new file and Swift file, and we're going to call this data set. Okay, and I'm going to say create. Okay, so now in the previous lecture, which was an article, you should have seen this right here. Okay, so this is our data set. All right, so we have here this class, and also we have some resources here. So make sure that you download the allimages.zip, and we're going to be adding those to our project. But go ahead and copy this whole data set right here. So you can see why I added this for you to just copy and paste, so that you aren't forced to follow along with me as I type out this whole thing. That would take us forever. All right, so with that copied, I'm going to come over here to our data set, and I'm just going to paste that. Okay, and you'll see here that we have all of these classes. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. So if you look at our demo app, let me go ahead and bring that up. We have here on the first view controller categories, right? We have burgers, pasta, pizza. And so over here, you see that we have an array of categories. And inside of that array of categories, we have several instances of our food category structure. And we have passed into it, we have initialized each of these objects here with a title and an image name, okay? So let's go ahead and drag in our image names. All right, so I have the images folder here that I just downloaded from that lecture, and I'm going to go ahead and open up our assets.exe assets folder, and then I'm going to Command A and grab all of those and just drag them in right here. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so if we take a look here, we have a whole bunch of images and they're divided into categories, and we have burger 0 through 6, pasta 0 through 6, pizza 0 through 6, etc. And then coming back to our data set, we have here our array of food category instances, and you're not entirely off the hook because we're going to practice a little bit initializing some of these models that we made, our food category and our recipe. So we're going to replicate this one right here that I have commented out. So just follow along. We're going to say food category, and we're going to initialize it with our title and image name. So this one is going to be sandwiches. So sandwiches, and the image name is sandwich 0. Okay. And if we check out our assets, then we can see that sandwich 0 is this image right here. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that commented one. And so you can see here that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 food category instances, each initialized with different data, so that eventually when we go ahead and call this array of categories from our data set, we will be able to populate our UI with that information. Okay, so let's take a look at what else we have. Then we have this array of burgers, and this is full of instances of the recipe structure that we created here. Okay, and we initialize it with a title, with instructions, and with an image name. And you can see that each recipe uses a different image. We have burger 0, then burger 1, 2, etc. And again, you're not off the hook entirely. We are going to replicate this recipe right here. So go ahead and initialize a recipe with our struct, and we're going to initialize it with a title, instructions, and image name. So the title for this one is a double cheeseburger. The instructions is, and you can cheat here, you can copy this, which I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy that and paste that right there. And then the image name here is burger 6. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete that comment. And then the rest of this file is just the rest of the food categories recipes. So we have pasta recipes right here, all instances of the recipe struct. We have pizza recipes right here. We have salads, and finally sandwiches. And then down here at the very bottom, we have a utility function that we are going to use to get the recipes. So for instance, right here, when we click on one of these categories, we're going to call this function, get recipes. We're going to pass to it the title, which would just be, in this case, burgers. So if I click on this, burgers, then we are going to call this function, which is we're going to be doing a switch statement, which means that we look at what is passed in here, title, and depending on which value is passed in, we return a different thing. So if we pass in burgers, then we return the burgers array that we were looking at up here. If we click on the pasta right here, then we return the pasta array. Okay, so that's what this function right here is going to be used for. So this data set is hard-coded into our app, and sometimes you might have data sets like this. Most of the time, though, you're going to be actually downloading this data from the internet, and so you probably won't have hard-coded data like this. But if you need to, then this is an easy way of having data in your app. We will be talking about how to download data from the internet here in a few sections, so sit tight for that. But for our purposes in this app, this is perfectly fine for us for now. All right, so that's all we're going to do in this lesson. We have added two of our structs that we are going to need, food category and our recipe. We have imported our data set and examined, what we have in this data set. We have an array of categories, which is an array of food categories. Then we have, for each of those food categories, we have a list of recipes, which is an array of recipe structs. And then at the very bottom, we have our function that is going to help us get the recipes for each category. We also imported all of our images that we are going to be using in this app. All right, so let's go ahead and finish this one up. In the next one, we're going to take a look at how to work with a table view, okay? So hope you're excited for that, and I'll see you then.